welcome along. You're watching InterTrash Live with me, Ollie. Hello, how is everybody? We've got a Tom Morgan. He's just arrived. He has just arrived. Don't worry. Today on InterTrash Live, we're speaking to Tom Morgan, the founder of Adventurists. I just rang him up because normally I go through bits and bobs with people first, so that you can watch them and it not be shit. I phoned him and he said, I'm out in a field dealing with some Shetland ponies. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. What kind of life you live? But he's here now because I can kind of see him between my windows, and but you can't hear him yet. So do you know what? I'm just going to bring him in. Because this might not work straight away. So let's just. There he is. He's alive. And what, right. Tom, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Oh man, I can't. Yeah, I just can't believe that actually worked. Though I wasn't expecting it to work. I haven't seen you in months.
That is true. Actual, like 6 months, maybe longer, even pre-COVID.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? How are you dealing with it all?
Don't mind. It's all right.
What do you mean? No, it's not all right though, is it?
Oh, it's not too bad for me. I haven't got it.
No. Okay. Let's just we'll go straight in. You run a travel business. It can't be great.
It's not great for travel, I suppose. That's pretty clear.
What are you going to do about it?
I'm going to start a biochemical company and solve COVID, sell the resulting vaccine to the world and become a trillionaire.
Okay.
Or where do you do nothing about it and wait till it goes away?
Where do you start with vaccination development? Do you know what? I'm going to just get you off the bullshit because you do that all the time. You want to talk about something straight and you just come out with some bullshit about developing a vaccination. No, seriously. I mean, it must have been when it happened and then they said, you can't travel anywhere. If I ran a travel company, I would have been like, fuck.
Yeah, there were a few days like that. Yeah. When I think we had quite a few events that were about to set forth. I was on one when it all started happening. I got back in during the lockdown, which is all.
Where were you?
Argentina.
Oh shit! Did you have any problems getting back then?
Not too bad. A couple of our guys did a bit. I was like, it was quite lucky timing. It was like a day or so leeway, and then I made it out. It was all right.
Do you think you got COVID?
No.
Because I know some people have had like coughs and colds. Yeah. You're just a carrier. You're a super spreader.
That's my brother-in-law got it and got hospitalised or whatever it is on. I don't think it was ventilated. It was intubated, I believe, rather than ventilated.
Oh, that's pretty serious. How's he now?
He's all right. I think he's still a bit tired. He's an ENT surgeon for children,
right.
So he probably got it off some snotty-nosed kid that he was. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean they really are super. They're super spreaders of everything, aren't they? Basically, that's essentially what they are. Because you sort of leapt on last minute, like I said, everybody else that I've spoken to was on time, and you have. I think it's fair to say that you're an eccentric of kinds. Would you say that? Would you describe yourself as that? I think you are. I mean, look at you. What have you got? What stains are those?
I mean, I've been wanking a lot.
Right.
No, I don't know what they are. There's some black.
Mystery stains. Yeah.
Mystery stains.
And are you regularly late for things?
I actually don't really like being late. But
right.
I tend to get a bit carried away in the moment and then forget what day it is or what year it is or what my name is. And then suddenly someone phones me up like you and says, where the fuck
Why aren't you here? I actually remember. I remember we were. I mean, I think that's fair because we went to Wales with a rickshaw to go. What wasn't? Yeah, we went to go and off road on a rickshaw basically to prove that rickshaws were the ultimate off road vehicle, and we went to. Yeah, we did do it. It was the toughest off road course in the UK, I think. What was it called? I can't remember.
I can't remember whether it was. Wasn't it past Riada somewhere? No, it wasn't.
Something like that. But with you being on time and wanting to be on time, I remember we were sort of halfway through this course in the middle of rural Wales, where the nearest mobile phone mast was probably 180 miles away. And we were in our boxer shorts, not for some sort of homosexual romping session, but because the rickshaw got stuck in a freezing cold river and we needed to take our trousers off to get in the river to try and muscle this thing out. Anyway, we got it half out, and then you were like, oh shit, I've got a meeting in a bit. And I was like, what? Most normal people would have gone, I can't do this day because I've got a really important meeting that I need to jump. And you jumped on the call. We had to rush back to get mobile phone reception so you could make a call, which was just ridiculous. So at least you make the effort to get back on time.
It's just fail. It's repeatedly fail.
Let's start, because I'd imagine there's probably people that have watched. Actually, quite a few people know who you are. Watching know exactly. Have you shared this on the Adventurists page?
I don't think so.
Do it now. Do it now, because I can guarantee you there will be people who have signed up to an adventure with the Adventurists who want to know what you are thinking. Look behind his vacant expression. And also it's good for me because it means people watch my stuff. Hello, by the way, if you've just joined, I'm chatting to Tom Morgan. Tom Morgan is the founder of the Adventurists. He's currently in the process of sharing this video on his Facebook page. The Adventurists, if you don't know, are the people behind the Mongol Rally. That's what I say whenever I'm explaining to people what the Adventurists are, because I think most people know the Mongol Rally, or a lot of people know what the Mongol Rally is. That's fair to say, isn't it? No, he's still sharing. So he can only you can only do one thing at a time.
And I was distracted by the fact that I opened Facebook and I was on it, like slightly out of sync.
Right. So you were watching yourself on Facebook. Interesting. I like it. That's good.
But in the past.
Yeah. Okay. Well, why don't you tell your past self, your future? Let me know once you've shared it, and then we can crack on with this conversation, thrilling as it is. Because I'm keeping them to an hour, Tom. So there's we can't ramble on too much.
I was a bit worried about that. I thought that was going to be quite long. People will get bored.
Well, I'm 8 minutes in and I'm already bored. But once you, if you hurry up and share that, we can crack on. I've got some serious questions I want to ask you. You are.
Well, the last thing
this is not about me.
But the last thing we put on Facebook was your InterTrash thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know, but you last time on it, for anybody that knows Facebook algorithms, right? If you share just the link, it's just utter shite and it looks crap, and that's what Tom did rather than share the post. So he did.
I didn't. I said I put some words in there. Isn't that what you wanted to do?
It was.
It was quite short.
Yeah, I mean, it was a social media fail. Put it that way. Have you
4,283 people looked at it, or they were reached, which means that
4,382 people thumbed past it and said nothing.
Oh, fuck that.
Right. Look.
Link.
Whilst you keep sharing that, I'm just going to explain.
Where's the link, Holly? Where am I sharing it? Oh, there it is. I sent it on WhatsApp, didn't I?
Oh God, that's painful. Anyway, if you're watching, there's a number on the screen, 073 80325 882. If you want to ask Tom a question, you can. The phone is somewhat temperamental, okay? So if you want to ask him a question, you can write in the comments. Jeremy Slade's joined. Hi, Jeremy. Hope you're well. Yeah, you can call if you want to, but there's no guarantees that I'm going to pick it up because it's so temperamental. Now, have you done that yet? Can I ask you questions yet?
You can ask.
No, you can't do two things at once. It can't be done. So you're gonna have to. I've just seen your WhatsApp message saying I'm back. If you're wondering what's going on, Tom was late. That's what's going on. Tom was born and then arrived late, and now he's trying to figure out how to share something on Facebook, and it's going swimmingly. I hope you've all had a lovely weekend. I'm just going to address you now until Tom tells me he's finished sharing that thing on Facebook. I hope you're all having a lovely weekend, whatever you're up to.
We're 20 minutes in, are we? Jesus.
We're 10 minutes in. No wonder you're late for everything.
It looks like 18 minutes and 12 seconds. Oh, that's because
I start 10 minutes early, but not with me.
You were late.
I relate. Now, look, have you done that now? Have you done?
Yeah.
Okay, we're done. Right. So, let's start with the Adventurists. Let's get that out of the way. When and why did you set up the Adventurists? I know you've probably been asked this question a million and one times, and I'm pretty sure I've heard the answer, but I still want to hear it again.
2004-ish, I guess. Why? I thought it'd be a good idea. I don't know. Started out as the Morgan Institute of Adventure Research.
Right.
Combating cinematic affective disorder, which is where you watch films and then you come out of the cinema and life's a bit shit compared to Batman. And we thought we could do something about that by making life a bit more like Batman.
Okay.
That was 2001. And then I was drunk.
What did you do? But what inspired it? Like, where were you? What were you doing? What made you just think, oh, I'm gonna set up this thing to make life more like Batman? I mean, that's weird. I've never heard you describe it like that before.
Well, I'll take it back then.
No. But I mean, if you wanted life to be more like Batman, you could just don a leather onesie and just walk around the streets pretending to battle crime. But that's not what you do. Largely, you do things which are borderline illegal. So you're like the complete. I suppose Batman does as well in some kind of weird vigilante way. But anyway, like, yeah, trying to get a sensible answer out of you is literally like trying to get blood out of a fucking stone. Tell me about the first Mongol rally. Do that.
Okay. So then I was an art student, so I obviously had an awful lot of free time and no intellectual commitments whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because art should never be a degree. Because it's a stupid idea. And I went to the Czech Republic on one of those, I think it was Erasmus back in the day. You did an exchange for a term back in the day before semesters.
I think I remember that. Yeah. It was a company that sorted it out, was it?
No, it was it was an intergovernment EU scheme.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. I remember the Erasmus name, sort of. I don't know why. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
He was a philosopher, I believe. I don't know.
So
maybe he was a big proponent of exchanges.
But you were in the Czech Republic, and then
bought with my mate Jules, and we bought a really shit car, a Fiat 126, which I love. I mean, I love shit cars. I love all things that are a bit shit. And no, not all things. That's not true at all. I love shit cars, not all things that are a bit shit. And it turned out to be two Fiat 126s that had been badly welded together, kind of, which I could probably spot these days, but probably had like a 30-degree angle in the middle or something. And then we just picked the most stupid place we could think of driving to, which happened to be Mongolia, and then set off with. We decided we wouldn't make any preparations, take any tools or any changes of clothes, or make any plans. And funnily enough, we failed miserably.
How far did you get?
Iran. And then they, I think because we stank and didn't have a visa and looked like we were terrorists, they probably didn't want us in.
Sure. I still struggle with the process of how you got from being in the Czech Republic with a Fiat 126, deciding to drive to Mongolia, and turning it from that into a business where you charge people to basically facilitate that, and so they can go and do what you were tempted to do in the first place. Like when because if I did that, I wouldn't think, oh, I could make a living out of this. How did you? What made you think that?
I didn't think that. Fuck no. I thought this was great fun. I didn't. At no point was it a conscious decision to start a company. Well, at some point there obviously was, but it was just like I had a lot of fun, and I'd organised events that raised money for charity before, so I thought, fuck it, we'll do that with the Mongol Rally. So set it up, and the first rally had the incredible price of zero to take part in, and I thought there'd be thousands of people queuing up, like round the fucking block, going, "Yeah, fuck, this is incredible! I don't have to pay anything, and it's and I can drive to Mongolia." Obviously, no one knew about it because it was just a website that I'd made in my pants in a cupboard, and I thought it'd be amazing, and the world would shudder as the Mongol Rally set forth, and only 6 cars signed up, and and I was one of them. So really, only about 2 or 3 people who weren't my direct mates signed up. And then this was back in the day before GDPR. So a friend of mine had, like, do you remember Phones for You? Do you remember that?
Yes.
So he had something shit called Phones to You or something like that, or his mate's mate or something, and he just basically broke all current data protection and just emailed his entire mailing list something completely random about the Mongol Rally, which has very little to do with phones. In fact, kind of that. Or back then they were bricks, weren't they? And still only 6 people.
But were you surely at that point then? You must have been just disheartened at the lack of enthusiasm in the world, because like this really cool, interesting thing. Why do you think so few people signed up? Do you think they were just caught up in? I don't think anybody
really knew about it.
Right.
Because a lot of people didn't know about it, and then gradually a lot of people did know about it, but they just thought it was made up because it sounded really stupid. And
but that's weird actually, because I remember just sort of, I don't even know how, but I just remember sort of hearing about the Mongol Rally, and it was maybe around the same time that I'd heard about the Gumball Rally, which is obviously something completely different, which is just rich people driving across the continent or whatever. And I just wondered, like, when was that turning point? What made it sort of tip, and then all of a sudden loads of people wanted to sign up?
I don't know. Like, I think it was quite people got back, and obviously it was great fun. So people got back, shared lots of stories with their mates down the pub. And I think a lot of people who were interested the first year but didn't know it was going to happen, then saw it happen and then signed up. And then, so the second year was 40 teams or 40 something. And then after that, it was like 200 teams, and it sold out in about 3 seconds. And it actually physically melted the server in London back in the day when your website sat on a specific server. Someone had to go in and put the fire out because we actually melted it. Which is
oh my God, that's amazing.
And then, and at that point, I think we were charging 50 quid or something. No, it was a bit more. Maybe it was 100 or 200 quid. I don't know. Second year was 50 quid. Just figures pulled out my ass, really, based on no business skills whatsoever.
Yeah. So I can imagine you were hemorrhaging money at that point.
Yeah. After it was 50 teams, it suddenly was like, okay, it's not so much fun doing this for free, because it's actually all of my time. And I thought either I can't be bothered, or it needs to become something that's a bit more self-sustaining. And then the Adventurists sort of happened.
Yeah, but was the Adventurists sort of born with just the Mongol Rally, or did you do other stuff off then as well? Because you're also famous for, I think your 2 most famous events are the Mongol Rally and the Rickshaw Run.
Sorry.
It's all right, we can still hear you coughing your fucking guts up. Yeah. But was it, did you, when you launched it as the Adventurists, did you have other events, or was it literally just the Mongol Rally at that point?
No, I think it was the Rickshaw Run we launched in 2006, like after the first bigger Mongol Rally. And then it was the Institute of Adventure Research originally. And then we just put up a load of things like going across the channel in a bouncy castle, or going around the world on a Honda C90.
The thing about you though, like you just completely glossed over the fact you were like, we set up the Rickshaw Run in 2006 or whatever. That could not have been an easy undertaking. You set it up in India, right? I've been to India. It's hard enough just getting on a rickshaw. You went and you wanted to, I don't know, presume own or hire rickshaws for people to drive around, which I don't think is something you can do as a tourist anyway, is it? Or it wasn't?
No, it wasn't.
So how did you, that must have been horrendous.
Yeah, but I just tend not to think through the details before you start these things. Wade in, and then you've got no choice.
Yes.
But I do, because then Dan joined the company. He did the first Mongol Rally. And I think on his first day, I gave him a brown bag full of cash and said, right, your plane tickets to India tomorrow. You need to go and buy 30 rickshaws.
Day one on the job.
Yeah.
A brown bag full of, at least a suitcase. No, here's a brown bag.
Old used envelope.
Yeah. And did he succeed? I'm assuming so.
Yeah, we got there. We got there.
And then
Were
what
a
are the
few
rules
twists
then?
and
Because
turns.
you can't. You then have to sell these spaces to people who couldn't necessarily drive a rickshaw in a foreign country.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Well, we figured out a way around the rules to make sure that you could drive them in the foreign country, got them all insured and all that. But we had a load of people. Being by that point, I was a fucking business genius. So, not really thinking about how much this was all going to cost. I just thought we'd charge £97 per team because that sounded less than 100, and I thought 100 sounded like a lot of money.
That sounds like something you think you might have read in a book somewhere about business. Yeah, I'm
That's it.
pretty
Like,
sure
if
you
charge
price
100
things
quid,
at enough.
everyone's like, go for like £3 lower. That's what you see in the
Yeah.
supermarket, isn't it? Like your Cornish
Psychological
pasties,
pricing.
£1.99.
Yeah.
This will be business genius. Anyway, so I forgot, like, half the people didn't pay. We had a bunch of people pay with checks because that's what you did in those days, and we forgot to cash them. So the whole thing was like a fucking financial shit show. But people came, and then there was some big argument because I was in Mongolia, and there was some kind of meeting that we'd arranged, and half the people, because everyone we spoke to said you're all going to die, and it's a fucking terrible idea. And then half the people on the rickshaw run decided to believe them, which I was most put out by, and so they all buggered off, and then but we still had like 20 odd teams, I think, in the end, and then it worked. So fuck them.
Yeah, now it's pretty big now. I mean, pre-COVID, obviously, it's sort of
right now it's a bit smaller.
Yeah, it's I know it got to a decent size. I mean, you speaking of sort of like jumping into things without really thinking about it, you also ventured the thought, at least, of trying to get into space.
Yeah.
And is that still a thing? And explain how you intend to do it with a brown envelope full of cash.
Set the envelope on fire and blow oxygen over it in a small tube.
Yeah, sure. I feel like there's more to
work.
it than that. But you do want to do it, don't you? I mean, it's a genuine thing. I thought you were taking the piss, and it was a bit of a PR thing.
Like, sort of ran out of time was the real thing. Because obviously there's a fairly well-known phrase about it. It's not rocket science, but this stuff's quite well documented, and I'm sure it's really hard. But I feel like it doesn't really matter if it succeeds. It would just be fucking great to try. So we thought we'd try and build our own rocket. And then we put out this really stupid video, and 500 very talented professional astrophysicists and rocket scientists applied to help out, including someone who was something like, and I don't know her exact title, so this is probably not correct, but like the director of the NASA Mars program, and lots of people from EASA. And
you actually had people offer to get in touch after, right? Yeah, I haven't actually got the video, which is a real shame. I wish I did. But I think this is the video where you basically, with Buddy, who's another adventurist, you sort of throw this idea out that you want to get into space, and then it's basically a video of you attaching a firework to a piece of string attached to a roof and letting it go and going, yes, let's go to space. Rocket scientists saying, we want to help.
Yeah.
Right. But how would
the plan was, I thought, like, there's a lot of very talented people all over the UK. It was just predominantly a UK. Well, I was quite annoyed because Kenneth Clarke shut down the British. I mean, this is pre my time, Wolf being conscious particularly of the world. Shut down the British space industry just about 2 weeks before we had launched the cheapest orbital object. The cheapest orbital launch in the history of mankind was done by the British Space Agency. And then 2 weeks before that success, we launched a little satellite that is still orbiting the Earth now, I believe, pinging out meaningless radio gibber. It may have degraded now, I'm not sure. He shut it down because obviously space, who spends money on space? Probably some people complaining about not having jobs and stuff, and he was spending all the money on rockets. Priorities. Anyway, so I thought we had some really good, because from the Nazis, the Americans got von What's-it and their space program. But we inherited this, I think it was hydrogen peroxide, some hydrocarbon, obviously, based rocket system that actually burns very efficiently and quite cleanly. And we had this wonderful rocket, which is dangling on the roof of the Science Museum now. And I thought we could restart the British space program with people in their sheds. Like, you know, if you're going to, there's some pretty talented people with quite a lot of equipment. And if you're not in a great rush and you don't really care about, you know, tolerances and you don't mind if it all goes wrong and blows up, you can probably build some quite big rockets and have fun. And then we just keep going. And that was the plan.
You could almost say that about anything, though, couldn't you? You could say, well, if you threw health and safety and any kind of rule or regulation out of the window, there's quite a lot that you could do.
Yeah, which is true. Yeah. Which is why I think the Chinese government laugh at us for our things like data protection, because it just ties companies up in knots. And the people who are going to actually steal your data and clone your passport don't give a fuck. But it just wastes a load of people's time, like health and safety. It spoils life. Yeah,
I'd imagine your attitude towards that is quite cavalier.
Bordering on extremist.
Yeah, so I mean, in your world, no, but it's serious. Minihood 1997's commented, you can do a lot if you don't care about killing people.
Correct.
Yeah, but
it's a good
correct
policy to have.
Well, this is interesting. Yes, it's correct, but whether or not it's a good policy to have or not is. I mean, what you're generally pretty cavalier about risk, aren't you? You don't really. I mean, I've seen you climb up ceilings without any rope and anything like that, where one slip and you just break your neck, but you don't even think twice about it.
I guess so, yeah. But I'm not that. I'm not completely blind to it. I'm not lobotomized, for example. I'm aware that it exists, and I pay heed to it because I don't want to be paralyzed or dead. I quite like being alive. As do us all, I guess.
He said, Minihood said that wasn't an endorsement from me.
Yeah, I realised, but I took it as well.
Yes, he took. Minihood, he'll take and claim anything as an endorsement. Don't worry, it's one of his traits. But you do, I don't think I've known anybody to have quite that sort of, not disregard for risk. That's unfair, like you say. But I mean, I think if I'm going to go and do something that's risky, in my head, I will think about all the possible consequences. So you attached yourself to a deck chair attached to a load of helium-filled balloons, right, with string. Now, in my head, that's fucking terrifying and should only be reserved for an animated movie because it's just not reality. You must have been a bit scared.
Yeah, I was, I think, sort of constantly petrified, but it was quite a rush, so I didn't have time to think about it before I did it. And then you're sat on the chair, and what you're going to do, you wait till you come down, pretty much. Well, you can control it a bit. It was actually a pretty well-controlled flight. But I also figured, and I think correctly, that actually it's a reasonably safe form of flying, apart from the landing bit, because you've got multiple points of failure. So unless you get attacked by a really angry and quite determined flock of birds, deliberately destroying all of your balloons at the same time, you're broadly okay. And we did little things like it wasn't, we didn't, I tested out balloons, worked out how much lift they gave and how quickly the gas escaped through the balloon membrane, so that you could calculate roughly how long you'd be afloat for before you sank down again. And then we filled some, so obviously the more likely than birds is for example, the sun, we set off in the morning, so one risk was that the sun would heat up the balloons and obviously the gas expands and they all burst at the same time. So we just inflated a couple of balloons like 20% more than the others. And if you started hearing bangs, you want to come down quick.
Right. But it's not just to explain it, because I haven't got the video here, but the best way and simplest way to explain it, sorry if it's trivializing it, but it's like that film Up, isn't it? A Disney film. It's basically what you would imagine colourful helium balloons attached to. It was a camping chair, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think I've seen the chair. Yeah. with string. But what
Fishing line.
fishing line?
And builder's line. You know that stuff that they mark.
Yes, I do.
Lines, plumb lines, that's the stuff.
Yeah, a chalk line thing.
It wasn't a chalk line; it was plumb lines. This sort of
Plumb
waxy
line,
plastic.
Right. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay, all right.
We
But
discovered you can't tie a knot in without it snapping.
What gave you the idea to do that though? Because I mean, I know. Just thinking about the Adventurists, you do the Mongol Rally, which is in a car. You do the rickshaw run, which is in a 3-wheeled rickshaw. You do the monkey run, which we haven't talked about yet, which is in on miniature motorbikes essentially. This is quite the departure. I mean, why? You must have seen something that made you think, "Yeah, fuck, I'll do that."
I guess so. Yeah, I'm not sure really. We thought about it for a long time. We did the Icarus Trophy, which was the paramotor race, longest paramotor race. It's kind of long distance, and that was great fun. And I thought there's something inherently stupid about ballooning in a kind of genius way. When I use the word stupid, then that you really do not have that much control about where you're going. So it's kind of an adventure in a floaty box. And party balloons is great. It's funnier. It's quieter. It's actually quite an amazing experience because obviously at some points I was traveling about 40 knots or so. But it was
40 knots?
It's completely still for me because I was obviously with the wind. So it was
That's
just
surprisingly
silent.
Fast, actually. I wouldn't imagine you'd be.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried about landing at that speed.
Yeah,
but it was up high and down low it was pretty slow, so it was all right.
But with that, if that's the thing though, if ballooning itself is like, you know, when you think about ballooning, it is ridiculous. Like even normal ballooning, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like you're in a wicker basket above however high you're going, and you have no idea
something flammable with a large flame.
Yeah, and you're basically just going where the wind takes you, which I love, you know, and I like that idea. That is really nice. But why take it that extra step? Because you could still have an adventure which was with normal hot air balloons that's still quite extreme in the same way you do it with paramotors and you do it with rickshaws. Why go that extra mile and do it with helium balloons?
I think you can go further to start with. So a hot air balloon, unless you're going to get some very specialist equipment, then you're limited by the amount of gas that you carry. And you're probably looking at an hour and a half flight without starting to get sick. Plus, it's really fucking expensive, hot air balloon. But Amazon and Googling party shops, so it's a lot cheaper, apart from the helium, which is very expensive. But we'll try hydrogen next. Because some people were worried about MRI scanners and there being more sensible uses for a resource that's in some level.
Because helium, of course, yeah. But then
limited.
Hydrogen is notoriously flammable.
Yeah.
There's one incredibly famous incident of a balloon going up in flames because of hydrogen. Yeah. Surely that's not going to go well.
That was more to do with. Well, I mean, the video you see is actually the aluminium burning on the Hindenburg. But I think they had a lot of trouble, because now people do fly regularly with hydrogen, and they have gas balloons which have a kind of carbon coating on the inside. So if you get struck by lightning and things, it can conduct the charge away, and they're non-permeable. And hydrogen's not it. It doesn't combust without oxygen. It's not in itself combustible. It requires. It would need to be mixed. So if you can keep them separate, then you've got a relatively stable. You could, fire sparks through a balloon full of hydrogen, and it won't light until you mix it with oxygen. So it's fair. It could be safe. Obviously, then you put it in party balloons, and that's just Hindenburg stupid. But we'll see. Plus, I think it's a smaller molecule, so the balloons will deflate faster.
What is your background, Tom? Because you seem to I don't know if it's a hobby or what, but absorb information. Do you get sort of hooked on something, like if it's balloons or rickshaws or whatever, and then just go, right, I'm just gonna obsess about this for a set period of time? Or you just seem to have a sort of a data bank of sort of information when it's based around these things. Where's that from? Why is that something you've always done?
I think it's probably just an obsessional. I love science, and I love.
Do you have a background in science?
Nah.
What's your background?
My whole family are all engineers, but
right.
I'm clearly not.
That's unfair. I mean, you can still describe yourself as an engineer without having a engineering degree. Don't
true.
message if you've got an engineering degree. I don't care. But what? So what did you do? What was your area of expertise?
At university.
Well, not necessarily. Like, I mean, just sort of growing up. What was your thing? What was your
I like making shit. I think when I was 5, I tried to build an airplane in my shed at home because I always wanted to fly. Me and my mate Colin Linsell, who I tried to look up the other day, and he's vanished into the ether. We're planning on escaping and living on a tropical island with the jungle. So I was trying to build a shark-proof plane that we could. I don't know why it needed to be shark-proof. I think in case Colin was a bit obsessed with sharks.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd make it shark-proof in case we crashed. And I started building this plane in my shed, and it was fucking rubbish.
Yeah. Well, how old did you say you were?
5.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be
Maybe
reluctant
6.
to get in a plane that you built now. So, one at the age of 5. Mini Hood says, no, you can't call yourself an engineer. In some countries, engineer is protected title on par with doctor. Probably rightly so. I mean, if you're building fucking bridges. Yeah, sorry, I was quite a flippant comment. If you're building bridges, you probably should have the education to back it up. Yeah, I take it back. Tom is not an engineer. He's not. Although, have you successfully built a plane since, or even attempted?
No, not really. I've started, and I will, but I'm going to build some flat pack biplanes and fly them across the Atlantic.
See, it's that kind of comment or statement. Most people would say that, or if somebody said that, most people's reaction is fucking hell. What? No, you're not. But did you get that kind of hit back from other ideas that you suggested? I mean, the balloon one, you must have been told, don't be an idiot. I mean,
I don't really ask people's opinion anymore.
Right, yes, but okay, but you have a partner and you have, if you don't mind me saying, you have children as well, right? There's a risk there. You have a family. You must have just been like, what the fuck am I doing? I'll get somebody else to do this. Because if those balloons burst or that flock of birds that fly through them.
It definitely does, yeah. I think that happens as you get older anyway. Like, I remember going mountain biking like a fucking maniac at sort of 50 miles an hour and hitting fences and laughing about the pain and, and just doing stuff that was really, I actually do think twice about. Because it's not really adrenaline. I'm not really into adrenaline particularly. I like the getting lost and stuck bit, the bit that requires wits. That's not the pure fear of death. I'm not there. Although I did used to like that, but that's like the same as any 20-year-old male. You like doing stupid stuff, and then you grow out of it. But I've always liked just getting lost and stuck and finding things out as you go. I think that's why I like science, and it's just. And I quite like starting things that I know nothing about because you find all these interesting things out.
Is that where the inspiration for the sort of the vehicles that you use comes from? Because I mean, you're way more likely to break down in a rickshaw or, with the ballooning idea, for example, if you were to do a trip on it, how the fuck do you land and then take off the next day without your balloons bursting?
So the idea will be the world's stupidest air race, and we'll basically fill up with a given amount of buoyancy above your individual weight. Then obviously you carry your ballast, which in my case was a couple of camping water butts with taps on, so you could let some water out and go up and pop a balloon and come down. And then we'll go and I reckon, well, with helium, I reckon we could have got 3 days of flight. So you'd have to be shitting over the edge of the camping chair and staying in the sky. But also at night, if you're staying at relatively neutral buoyancy at night, as it cools down, you're going to sink down to the ground. And then in the morning, I guess you could tie. I hadn't really thought through. It depends on the wind. If you're on the ground and it's windy, it's a disaster. You're not going anywhere. So you kind of have to stay in the sky, really.
For 3 days.
Well, it's unlikely to be that successful. And then the person who gets the furthest from the starting point in any given direction.
But I feel like all of your ideas are set up for failure intentionally, though. I mean, like when we did the rickshaw off-road thing, I mean, you were very confident that this thing would do it, but I mean, I was just like, well, we're going to fail on the first hurdle.
We
And
did it,
then
though.
we did do it. We did do it. Suggestion coming in for your flat back biplane idea. Sky Kia.
Yes, I like it.
Yeah,
That,
good. It's a good name. Well, how far are you along getting that done though? And what
I
are you going
started
to
making
build
some
them out
3D
of?
models, and I've been cutting them out by hand because I don't have a laser cutter. So I'm going to get them cut in a scaled down format, and then I'm going to
Out of what material are you using to build those
plywood,
then? Right.
and then I'm
But
going to
planes
scale
were
up.
built out of wood back in the day, weren't
Yeah,
they?
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I see you look at old flying videos. It's just this kind of wonderful, and even in the States, there's this brilliant sort of experimental aircraft groups who make these fantastic home-built aircraft, and it's just I don't know, it's fucking cool. And the early days of flight were wonderful, and they didn't really know what they were doing, and they were just getting out there. So it's fairly easy to look up the kind of mathematics required to work out whether it can basically fly. But I'll get it roughly flying and then just crash it a lot and print the new one and crash that until it's a great plane. But it'll be a biplane, obviously, because they're cool. That's the main thing, because biplanes are just inherently cool. And then B, because I'm going to be making out of crap plywood. If you've got a biplane, you've got you don't. The most efficient wing is a very long, thin one, but that requires better materials or more thought. And I don't want to go fast. I want to go old school and sputter across the Atlantic, crash into Greenland.
Well, I was going to ask you actually. You say sputter. I mean, it's the intention to do it using a petrol engine, then, like traditional.
It's
or
probably
gonna,
for long distance right now. These days, that's probably the better choice unless you've got a super efficient thing. If you want to do short distance, you could certainly slap some electric engines on. I'll give it a try. I was thinking about that the other day. Stick some electric motors in. It's probably cheaper.
What's all your view on that stuff? Because you're the Adventurists use cars. You use a lot of stuff that spews a lot of shit out. Your people that take part in your ventures travel all over the world. I mean, what's your overall sort of feeling of global warming, the environment, and that kind of thing? Do you want to see a move to electric vehicles, electric planes in the future? I know they're working on
No, I mean, I fucking hate the environment. I want it all leveled and turned into a car park. Ideally, we could sort of napalm.
I know that's bollocks. It was a leading question because I semi knew the answer and I wanted you to deliver it with your typical mumbling vigor.
Well, I quite like the environment, obviously. And we've been raising money some years ago. We always raise money for charity, and some number of years ago we swapped over to one called Cool Earth, who do. I think Matt told you about them, so I won't bore everyone by rambling on. But they're very good. They protect lots of rainforest. But are we greenwashing by, offsetting our carbon by 10,000-fold to some extent? Not really, because we're not doing it because we're trying to look green. Doing it because we genuinely don't like the fact that travel is quite disruptive. 2 weeks ago, with a guy in Sri Lanka who runs a university department out there, who's doing rickshaw conversions to electric, and we're going to start building an electric rickshaw and try and build the world's first long-distance electric rickshaw. Then we'll convert all of our fleet, and then we'll see if we can make the rickshaw run. Every time we run it, convert local rickshaw drivers over to electric, and we'll try and put some charging stations in the middle of nowhere, somewhere totally.
Well, I was going to say, that takes some of the magic away. I mean, because one of the joys of the rickshaw run, people that have done it might disagree with me, but I mean, your engine breaks down, you've got to figure out how to fix it. With an electric motor, I imagine it's less likely to go wrong, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say the motor's less likely to go wrong, but I think there's plenty of other things on a rickshaw that will fall off, including it falling off the side of a hill and tires falling off, and you can quite easily fold the chassis in half, and there's plenty of other things to go wrong. So maybe we'll give it a try. We'll see how it is. Obviously, if it's no longer fun, then we'll think again. But they're two-stroke, so half of our fleet is two-stroke and half is four-stroke now. It's not the cleanest thing in the world. It'd be nicer if it was, the cleanest thing in the world. That would be much better.
It's weird, isn't it? It's a bit of a. I mean, I'm all for like electric motors and everything, everything green, everything run off solar panels and wind turbines and all that kind of stuff. And then there is something really nice about a spluttery old engine that just stinks of petrol. And I don't know, it's weird, isn't it? I wonder if it's like, if we do enough to offset our day-to-day nonsense, we can still dick about with rubbish engines every once in a while.
I feel like if they were enthusiast things, that's not great drama, isn't it? Like, actually, the big problem is everyone uses them all the time for everything. Doesn't leave room for old crap cars. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the solution is, but it would be nicer if we weren't causing any damage at all. I don't know about planes. Maybe we can all fly there in an electric biplane instead of going by British Airways or whatever it might be.
Yeah. 100 countries are responsible for 70% of the world's CO2 emissions. Everything else is just pissing in the wind if we don't deal with that.
Who said that?
Oh, he says companies, not countries. 100 companies.
There we go. 100 companies is responsible for the entire global emissions.
For 70%.
70%.
This is the comment that's come up. Minnie had said.
Is that based on them like rolling into account things like Shell and then the emissions produced by the people buying their product? Presumably.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the source of the statistic, but I mean, it seems plausible. It's weird, isn't it?
Companies to change their behaviour is you stop buying their shit.
Yes, I know, but it's not as easy as that, though, is it? Because you can't, if I've got to use my car, which I've got a Vauxhall Astra, and I have to use my car to go and do things, I have to buy fuel, and I don't often, even if I buy that petrol from a BP garage or whatever, or Texaco, it doesn't necessarily. Do you know what I mean? I'm buying it from an oil provider. I get that. And you can't, but there's so many things like that, right? These T-shirts I ordered off Amazon the other week because I needed some new T-shirts, and I feel awful about it. Like, the fashion industry is horrendous. I don't know how many people indirectly have been affected by this from an environmental point of view, and I think that there's loads of things that you just can't have control of. So when you say don't buy these products from those companies, you don't necessarily know that, and I think something like
no, I agree with you. You're right. I mean, what I meant was a more generic point that consumer behaviour will drive corporate behaviour. Like, I'm not a big believer in that there's evil corporations sitting there. I think that public limited companies are inherently perhaps psychopathic because their only goal is to make shareholder value for everyone's pensions in the country. But I think the people on the board aren't sitting there. I mean, I don't know loads of them. My assumption is that they're not just. I'm sure there are some evil bastards there, but predominantly they're probably fairly normal people.
Well, they just go where the money is, don't they? Correct, I mean, yeah. But this is the thing that I think COVID has kind of changed, because consumer behaviour has been forced to change. It has had to change, and potentially that will be beneficial, whether it's sort of people working from home more often and all that kind of thing. And I think it's made us more conscious of our everyday living, where our food comes from, because we're spending more time at cooking, and how we commute and the environment and things like that. And you're starting to see big companies start to make a change, also with racial matters and things like that. Companies are making changes because that's what people are talking about. So consumer behaviour is changing that, but I feel like it's taken a pandemic.
Although I think it's changing anyway. I'm a big technological utopianist. I believe that we can think our way out of these problems. And you can see, like, you've made a good point. You can't cheat. You've got to get in your Vauxhall Astra. But if your Vauxhall Astra happened to have been, a second-hand, third generation Tesla, which is now as cheap as Vauxhall Astra, which will be the case fairly soon, then you can actually make a sensible consumer choice there, and it doesn't matter so much as we develop better and better technology with a mind. Like we spent best part of 100 years improving the internal combustion engine and making it very efficient and cheap to manufacture, and it's not just the technology itself, it's the entire ecosystem around that, the factories and the logistics network around delivering those cars at high speed all over the planet. And once that gradually shifts over to electric, which it will, it's going to be like LCD monitors. Go and try and buy a CRT monitor these days. You just can't. And I think fairly soon no one's going to be able to buy a petrol car.
Well, as somebody that runs a business, what do you think is going to happen with work stuff? Because I think a lot of people, particularly have been furloughed or mostly furloughed, is that businesses have worked out that they can operate on a much slimmer, roster of staff. And how do I want to phrase this? Yeah, there's a lot of jobs out there which just didn't need to exist in the first place, and they almost existed for sort of corporate. What's the word? PR, almost. In that, if you're a large company like Shell or Tesco or whoever, and you say, "Well, look, we employ 15,000 people," that's what we do. You paying somebody £17,000 a year and then getting to that number that I employ 10,000 people is kind of fine. But when they've been furloughed and their job isn't actually that necessary, some of these companies could spend literally hundreds of millions of pounds tomorrow to build in a level of automation within their business to need a fraction of the staff that they have at the moment.
I was talking to someone who said companies, particularly companies like, I think it was, who's the big accountant firm, the big
Oh, I don't know. I want to say JP Morgan, but I don't know.
Well, anyway, one of those big names that everyone knows except me or you
and
currently.
Me. Just me and you in the whole world don't know this accounting firm. If somebody knows, please let us know.
They were saying that right now, using artificial intelligence, they could sack 70% of their workforce globally, but they don't because their competitors haven't, and for that reason, it's just like people like speaking to people.
But that's what.
And I think this is a big stress test. But I do think that companies have gone back to, okay, what is the absolute bare minimum that we need to not go bankrupt? And then I think there'll inevitably be a big contraction across the board. But then as things pick up again, you do find that there are, a friend of mine employed 30 people, and then during COVID, he had 2. And they were actually delivering the same results as 30 people.
But that's what I mean. So when you talk about a technological utopia, when you talk about a technological utopia, what does that really mean if you've got a system that we have at the moment where nobody's working? That's not a utopia. That's a load of poor people and some people working. So something's got to change there.
Yeah, we've had. There's all sorts of things. It's not just that, is it? Like extended lifespans, and there's a whole raft of things that could go wrong, from splitting society into almost different species of people. There's certainly problems with any new technology. I guess people talk about universal basic income. I don't know enough about macroeconomics to understand where the actual funding would come from. Obviously, the easy answer is we're going to charge the corporations, and they're going to. But is there enough money? And maybe that you need. I don't know the solution. Maybe you don't. Can't
it just dramatically change in a way where it's like, well, you just don't have money? Why couldn't that work?
That could. Let's say that the need for money is to buy goods. If you are either you've automated the entire farming process so that you can the unit cost of delivering food to someone's plate is so low, or could in fact be owned by the government. Maybe you don't, you've got your food, maybe housing is cheaper, I don't know. Population, broadly speaking, in most countries is either decreasing or the rate of expansion is decreasing pretty much universally from what I can see. So I don't think you'll end up with them. If you carry on a trajectory where people's lives get more and more comfortable, they tend to have less and less children. Seems to be borne out by the numbers.
Well, that's largely to do with healthcare systems in various countries, though, isn't it? Because you have more if you live in a country where child mortality is high, those people are more likely to have more children. So I think Bangladesh was a prime example where when the healthcare system got better, actually the number of children that people would have decreased ever so slightly. So it's slightly different.
I think it's only 2 point something in Bangladesh.
If new technology cuts the work in half, you'd think everyone works half as hard, but actually means half the people work just as hard and half the people go jobless because capitalism is shite. This is another comment. It's
not untrue.
Yeah, but this is the thing. If you're one of those people that continues to work, I think this is the thing with furlough that's kind of happened. You know, there are people that are getting paid the same amount of money, not doing anything, sitting at home, and there's a slight. The people that are going to work and earning the same amount of money are like, well, I'm fucking working. I want to be at home growing tomatoes. What's going on? So it's like if you have a universal basic income system, everybody has to get it. And then I assume working is choice. Ideally, everything would be automated. So if you want a sandwich, there's a robot making your bread.
Print. Yeah, there's clearly a large gap between the point at which you cause, or time-wise, between the date at which you cause major automation and start disrupting the job market, and before you reach that technological utopia where everyone is sitting around being a philosopher and a beekeeper and having great ideas. And I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think you have to solve problems as they come, but I'm not sure that means you shouldn't develop cool technology.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, look, I'm not going to take up any more of your time because it's almost 1 o'clock. But thank you. I'll speak to you properly soon. So bye, Tom. You can go now if you want. Ollie. Bye. See you later. Thanks very much. If you have been tuning in and watching, thanks to Tom. He is the founder of The Adventurists, if you didn't know. You should go and check them out. TheAdventurists.com, I think. Adventurists.co.uk. Thanks very much for your comments as well. Tomorrow, I've got Ade Bambala. He is the man behind Blackticulate, which is a podcast and website and all that kind of stuff, which focuses on... brilliant people that you may not have heard of, and getting jobs within BAME community, getting jobs and how they work and how their careers progress. You know what? I'm naive to this. I'm a white middle-class man, so I don't fully understand. But I'm going to chat to him. But what's really interesting is I went to school with Ade. I haven't seen him for a very long time. And so I want to speak to him about his experience versus mine at the same school. I think that'll be quite an interesting little chat. I hope you enjoyed the chat with Tom. If you did, please share. I would absolutely love that. I love having you all watching. Really love the comments. Make sure you like my Facebook page. Head over to my YouTube channel. All of these kinds of things. Absolutely fine. I will be on tomorrow, midday. Make sure you join me. Don't miss it. And I shall see you then. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely afternoon. Whatever you're doing. And I'll see you soon. Goodbye.
I love it when you couscous. Love it when you couscous. Love it when you couscous. 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 Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.